Full is back to Fullback, which is our podcast on Spotify and iTunes, and nowadays on YouTube as well. And we made a slight adjustment to what we do on this podcast. So nowadays we just talk about everything that has happened the last week at FC Barcelona, and we compile it together, curate it together, and give our own thoughts on it. It's a lot more relaxing. There's no analysis. There's no critical debate. There is no data. There is no insight. It's just gossip to a large extent, talking about what we are hearing and giving our 2 cents worth of it. So without further ado, let's start today's episode.
We are the Gossip Boys. That's our new podcast name, I think.
Yeah.
This will be the gossip series. But no, yeah, jokes aside, yeah, a lot of topics, a lot of interesting topics too. I have to mention. Yeah, so let's start with the goalkeeper situation. Obviously, we wish Marc-Andre ter Stegen all the best in his recovery. May he return to the pitch as soon as possible and as healthy and as fit as possible. Hopefully, this is not the end of ter Stegen at Barcelona, but we'll see, because these injuries can be very impactful, very unlucky, of course, and very serious. But yes, Szczęsny, I think he does bring you a different flavor to goalkeeping, because he is more of a shot stopper predominantly, and then comes everything else. So it will be interesting to see how he adapts to this Flex Barcelona, which is obviously puts a lot of emphasis on the ball playing from the back, including the goalkeeper. Now, I also want to touch upon Iñaki Peña, because he's meant to be the first goalkeeper, right? Because according to reports, he remains in that position regardless of who comes in the coming weeks or whenever that transfer finally happens. And to me, this poses a question. Is it really the right way to do that? Because we know what Peña can and cannot do. We saw his debut, which was decent, but it was mostly decent because he had nothing to do, right? If you can stop the ball from getting to Peña as much as possible, then yes, you can salvage the situation. And that sounds so horrible for me to say, salvage the situation with Peña on goal. But it is what it is. We've seen a large enough sample of Iñaki Peña to know that he's probably not the ceiling raiser Barca need in the goalkeeper position. Now, we may be wrong. He might explode this season. We're not goalkeeping experts, so we can't really tell as of right now without further scouting analysis. But to me, this doesn't seem like the move that will propel Barca closer to the trophies, closer to being competitive and an elite force in Europe as well. I may be wrong. Again, hopefully I am. Hopefully Peña brings a remarkable consistency with him, but that is at this very moment unlikely, to say the least. But yeah, it will be interesting how Barca handles that situation, and whether Szczęsny can actually push Peña aside, and then he will be the one to actually take over, which to me, Dev, it seems like a very likely solution, likely possibility moving forward.
I didn't think there would be a debate at all. Like, it was a slam dunk case, given what Peña did last year. But for whatever reason, there have been news consistently out of the club that Szczęsny will not be first choice. He will have to earn his place. He'll have to at least do a little bit of training before he gets in. So at least that's 5 or 6 matches. Since he has to play those 5 or 6 matches, if Peña plays well, great, he continues playing. If he doesn't, there is enough precedence for him to be dropped based on these 5, 6 games. The more interesting thing that I wanted to discuss with you, Dom, was about when we heard Szczęsny, part of social media was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. We have finally got a decent shot stopper, and that's incredible. And all our problems will be solved. And now we'll win the Champions League because ter Stegen was so bad. But if we actually go last year and look at the data, ter Stegen was a much better goalkeeper than Szczęsny on all counts. Szczęsny also has issues in problems with the aerial ball. He's also had issues in distribution. So it's not that he's lights out better on any of the problems that ter Stegen had, except for maybe shot stopping. And that just begs the question, is it really that much of a uplift that we are going to get?
I would agree, because ter Stegen, as faulty as he is, as shaky as he can be, and he can be quite shaky in certain situations, he's also, in some extent, a bit underrated, because people tend to look at his flaws and, okay, these are his flaws, but we don't really mention his strengths as much. And he does make a couple of miraculous saves per game. That's a standard. But then he fumbles the easier chances, right? The shots that he's meant to be saving somehow slip past it. And we know which ones, always the near posted ones. And it's always the same thing. So that's what's very annoying about ter Stegen. But on paper, he still brings you the numbers, like decent numbers, more than decent. I would say above average numbers. And he has the misfortune of being under a huge microscope, right? Everyone looks at ter Stegen because he's playing at Barca, number one. Number two, these silly mistakes happen to him. The brain farts, I could call them, they happen to him, and everything blows up on social media. So he has that misfortune to deal with. Now, Szczęsny, I don't know if he'll make that big of a difference that so that we are immediately a much better team overall. With this, you have to remember that the goalkeeper is also defined by the defensive line that he has ahead of him. So the numbers kind of correlate that. The quality of defense dictates the quality of goalkeeper's numbers as well. So we have to keep that in mind. So maybe if Szczęsny in this lineup and defense works out well, and they do their job well, maybe his numbers will be better than last season, for example. But then again, we can't really say that at this point because we do have a shaky squad. We don't know who's going to play, who's coming back, who's not injured, and so on and so forth, right? On paper, I think Ter Stegen remains underrated, even though he obviously has his flaws, and there are things that he should be working on to improve if he's to be this Barca elite goalkeeper, which we don't know if he's ever going to be again because the injury is what it is at the moment. So all the best of luck to Szczęsny because he has quality, he has experience, he has certain attributes that will improve the goalkeeper position. But as you mentioned, Dev, the ball playing and some other niggling issues might spell some trouble for him in the process of adapting to this Flick team because this Flick team puts an emphasis on certain things, and those things are non-negotiable when it comes to the goalkeepers and the whole back line and the whole style of play. Maybe let's tackle Thiago next. So he's coming back.
Yes.
What does he bring? Yeah, what does that bring to Barca in general? I think first and foremost, Thiago brings his brain, which is his most impressive aspect of his footballing persona, coaching persona, backstage persona, whatever you want. Thiago understands the game, and most of all, Thiago understands the Barcelona game. So I feel like in that instance, that aspect, this can only be a good thing. But we'd love to hear your thoughts there first.
No, you're right. I think the grass is always not green on the other side. We just don't think about it. And coming to Thiago, I think it's been well documented that I think for a while, at least Laporta wanted to bring that German school of football in. For whatever reason, right or wrong, let's not go into DNA or all of that stuff, but he has never hidden it. He was very open about it. And the fact is, when he got his opportunity, he did get Hansi Flick in. And it didn't happen overnight. It was planned. It was planned for a while for it to happen. There are not many players who have done the successful transfer from the La Masia school of thinking to the Bayern school of thinking at Mia San Mia, right? And Thiago is one of those players who did that. He came from La Masia, but he made his career in Bayern and in Liverpool. And obviously he played with Flick in that amazing team that they had built, which won everything, right? A player who knows Barca inside out, what he learned in the German school of football and his relationship with Flick. And then you think about the age of our players. They're like all 20 years old right now. Everybody's 20-year-old, right? So you need somebody who can be that bridge between Flick, who is, let's say, in his 50s, and kids who are in their 20s, and who does that bridging between A, language, B, culture, C, school of thought, D, a very different style of playing, right? Whether he's a good coach or not, I would not know. But somebody who has learned and played under Klopp, he has played under Hansi Flick, he has played under Guardiola. How many football players can boast of that? These are the prime tacticians of their time, and he has learned from all of them. I think what he can give is massive. And also the management part of it's not the psychological part of being a player. I thought Thiago will play for a little bit more. I didn't think he would retire so early. I genuinely did not think that. And that he would be willing to make the switch into coaching so fast. Apparently, he's already looking at his degrees and licenses and all of that stuff. It's really interesting. And based on media, it feels like when he was last there for the last few, like whatever little time that he was, it left a very positive sensation within the team and among the board. So yeah, that's my take, Dom, if you have something else to add.
Interesting because his playing career, might have been short. I don't know if were the injuries that kind of propelled him to retire a bit earlier than we would expect. But whatever it was, it's still at this moment I say that he has the profile. So certain players, you can see that they would make for good coaches, right? You have the Thiagos, even the Xavi. Xavi is the perfect player to coach transition because he has the brain. He knows the football as well as he does. And that's what we still at Barca Football, we still believe that Xavi will be a great coach one day. Not now, perhaps, because it's a huge step to make, but in the near future and mid future, of course, yes, we do believe that he has the capacity for that. And Thiago is the same. Jorginho might be the same. I think I saw a report saying that Jorginho is taking his tests and he will be looking to transition into a more of a coach based role, which kind of suits him because he's a player with a brain, and Thiago's a player with a
Gundogan,
brain.
another one.
And another one, absolutely, Gundogan is definitely coach material, and to have these players in your club, both playing and then being the assistants and behind the scenes guys in your club, can only, on paper at least, because we don't know the impact they actually have on the team, but on paper and in theory for us, it seems like a perfect fit, right? It seems okay. This is the appointment that actually improves everything behind the scenes, and then that aspect kind of transfers onto the pitch, hopefully, and improves the on the pitch aspects as well. That's how we see it, how it could work. And hopefully Thiago does bridge the gap that Dave was talking about, because that's a very good point. Have the youth, have the experience, and then have someone as a middleman who can take that youth and he can transmit the experience ideas to them in a way they can maybe understand easily and maybe implement them more easily. So yeah, let's hope it works out. I'm glad to see him back because Thiago is a big part of who Barca are and who they used to be. And hopefully he'll be a big part of who they will be in the future then.
With that, let's transition to our next topic. We have talked a lot about the Barca press. And when Xavi came in, we saw there was a fundamental shift in attitude from the time. There was a focus around pressing, the team attacking and defending as a unit. He definitely did work on that. But the thing was, we often felt that they were running a lot. And they were. According to data, Barca was running more than any other team in La Liga, right? And that decimated us with injuries, right? And we saw that happen. And it wasn't that with all the running, we were being able to contend with all the counters that were happening or were better at stopping the press. It wasn't that, but we were running a lot all the time. This season, but again, we'll not make it about data, but there is apparently we are running lesser and so on. So I don't know who does his analysis, but apparently we are running 8% less every game. But whatever, let's keep the data aside. Eye test tells you that we run less, but we press more effectively. And then if you look into simple things like Pedri's time management, Pedri's taken off by the 60th minute, 70th minute, 65th minute, Pedri's off every game, right? He doesn't play the whole game at all. He's used very intelligently by Flake or dropped completely. Similarly for some other players as well. There has been a thinking or some sort of an analysis that has gone in deciding that, okay, it's a lot more compressed, the press, like these, like everybody has zonal areas of pressing and then they do that pressing and then stop and they don't run anymore. They just keep in their areas. But because everybody does it at the time that they need to do it and it's quite well managed that way, I think individually you run less, but collectively you press better, right? And that's basically something that is happening. But I would also say that the press right now is far more effective. Just look at the data of the number of recoveries we do, the positions in the pitch where we do the recoveries and so on. I think there's something to that argument. Dom, you're the tactical one. How have you seen this play?
Yes, this is something that the best teams always do, right? It's not about how much you press, it's how smartly you press. You need to be able to recognize when and how to press, and you have to be in sync with the rest of the team, right? So if you press alone, it won't matter if you're a Gavi, a Rafinha, or a Lewandowski, you will probably do the same. You have the same success rate, which will be probably low, because if you press alone, like a headless chicken, you go forward, your team goes backwards, nothing happens. You can spend all the energy you have. You can be on a bike if you want to. You have the same result, right? It won't matter. But if you press as a team, you stay compact and you are on the same page. Because if I go there, I know that my teammate has to take my place. We have to shift this way or that way. We all know what we're doing, and that's how you press successfully. And this is what we're seeing with Flick. It's not always perfect. Of course, our pressing has some issues that we will discuss on the channel. So be prepared to watch that in the coming weeks. But there's a clarity again. There's a structure. We know what we're supposed to be doing. We know that the number 9 is not the most dynamic, most mobile one. So he knows that he has to drop deeper and cover those central areas into the pivot. And we know that as a result of that, the wingers will often have to do a bit more. And that's where we come to the Rafinha, him running a bit too much, according to the reports that state, okay, Barca have asked Rafinha, okay, just chill out, dose it down a bit. You're running too much, you'll get injured. But he has to in a certain way because he's compensating for the other teammates who cannot do that. So there are still some issues in the team that need to be balanced out. But on the face of it, yes, I think the eye test will confirm it. We are aggressive. We like to press high, but we're not headless chicken anymore. We're not players who just run around the pitch without any clarity in aim or goal. We know how to press. We know when to press. We have certain triggers that always tell us, okay, now is the time to go. Now is the time to fall into a deeper, lower block, maybe a mid block. And now is the time to go high and go counter pressing mode fully and commit to that every single game and every single lost ball or every single misplaced pass in the position. We know what we're doing. And to me, that is a way more sustainable thing, because last season we had a period where we were really good in the press, and pressing was a clear attacking and creative instrument for Xavi. But then once that kind of our fuel ran out, once we had no more energy, injuries started creeping up, that's when the quality of the press faltered. Now with Flick, in theory, this is more sustainable because there's a clear plan, because it's not just ad hoc, just do it while you still can, run until your last breath. It's not like that. It's all a part of a plan. And if we stick to the plan, to the structure, in theory, it should be more sustainable going forward. So that's the thing to look out for. And that's, I think, what Flick is trying to achieve, because he is all about the press. He's all about the running, all about the aggression, but it has a box, confined box. He has a clear idea, a plan, a guideline, instruction from him, and that matters.
That absolutely matters. And continuing with Flick, looks like one of our concerns when we were coming in that me and Don talked about was how would he integrate with this Spanish media or the Catalan press, which can be very difficult, as we have seen. And the media is its own tornado in itself, right? But it looks like the strategy is paying off. Flick still talks in English. He hasn't tried Spanish. And I think there's a little bit of it is thought through. It's a controlled kind of a situation where if you let him loose in Spanish, then things can happen. By keeping it to English, they're controlling the situation. But let's leave aside that. There are these beautiful stories that are coming out from Spanish media. One was about when Flick got out of his car because people were chasing his car for his autograph, and he made them stand in the line, and then he signed their autographs. And that was a beautiful, feel-good story. Then there was this another one where Flick was apparently coughed during a press conference, and a journalist gave him some strepsils or what have you, and then he paid them back. And just the interplay that he's having with the media, like some journalists asked him about Kunde, and he said, you know what, you won't tell him that you don't have to play every game. That's your job. So he's doing these fun things, and he is doing it in a very polite manner. If you've also seen, Flick has hardly ever complained about any decision about referee, in which every press conference was about referees for 5 minutes. And that became an issue. I don't think in the last 7, 8 matches, Barca has said one word about any refereeing decision anywhere. There's been hardly any discussion on the league. There's been hardly any discussion on decisions. All very clean, all very about the game, keeping it very light.
And there was material. There was a lot of material for that to talk about it. He still chooses not to. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. There was all the chance to do that, but they haven't. And it also looks like it's a thought through move from the club itself. Like they've discussed this, they've come up with a plan, and they're going about it. Now, obviously, there'll be more games that will come up and we'll see. But that was something that really hit my eye, that we often don't think about how much the club thinks about everything that's happening. But some of these strategies looks like that the stuff that we talk about, they also talk about, and they come up with a plan and then they execute it. And sometimes we see the outcome of that job.
And is that man management that we talked about prior to Flick's appointment that he kind of brings to the table? And that's important because how you handle yourself on the pitch, so as a manager, how you handle yourself in front of the media, the journalists, how you handle yourself in the streets with the fans, all of that kind of transmits the players, right? If your coach is very calm and collected, he's very sure of himself, very confident, very has that aura about himself, the players will pick up on that and they will try and mimic that, mirror that same personality on the pitch when they play. And that's how they will handle pressure. That's how they will handle the media. That's how they will handle all of these controversial situations, which do happen in La Liga a lot, because let's not get away with the fact that La Liga referees have been shaky as of, well, for a long time, actually. We don't really discuss that as much because we just focus on ourselves. We keep winning in spite of their inability, the referees, their sloppiness, their shakiness, their instability in making choices on the pitch in the heat of the moment. In spite of all of that, we're playing our game, we're focusing on ourselves, we're calm and collected, we're very sure of ourselves, and that's visible in the results as well. It has a huge impact on how you play and how well you play. So I feel like Flick, yes, to your point, Dev, he's doing that on purpose. He's avoiding the traps of the media on purpose. He knows what he's doing. He's very experienced that way. Xavi was a bit hot-headed. He was very passionate. And you need passion from a coach. Absolutely need that. You need someone who will stick up to your players and be the shield for the media. He takes all the blame, all the fire, while the players can be a bit more relaxed. They can feel safer in such a way. But at the same time, that passion and that, let's call it insecurity, inexperience, all that jittery stuff was then transmitted to the locker room as well. And that's what we had so many yellow cards and so many controversies always talked about. That's not good for the overall health of the team, of the locker room, of everything that happens behind the scenes as well. And you don't see that drama now. You don't see the drama among the players, among them in the media, with our coach, with our staff. You don't see that as much. Maybe it still happens. It probably does. There's always drama.
For some reason.
Exactly.
Everything looks really calm.
Yeah,
Everything looks
yeah.
really, it's strange, but you can notice it. And that's not happened just like that. It has happened by design. They've got the work towards it and so on. So
Exactly.
kudos where it's due.
Yeah, imagine if we jumped on every single Real Madrid bad decision from the referee, we'd be talking about Real Madrid every single week.
All day.
And that just, all day. Throw shade at different clubs. Everyone talks about Real Madrid's decisions going in their favor. Imagine if our coach was there every single day in front of the media talking about Real Madrid. That wouldn't be healthy. So I think what he's doing is obviously work.
He's the right
doing
thing.
the same
It's right.
thing. Yeah.
It's
All right,
absolutely
let's
the right.
keep going.
All right, let's keep moving. We don't have much left, but AGM's coming up. October 30th is the date. And that's the date when we'll get to know the club finances, whatever is presented after auditing and so on and so forth. And then we'll have a lot of discussions with a lot of financial experts. The whole of Twitter will become finance experts and we'll learn about where Barca is. But looks like they're in a better position. We'll do a much bigger section on it once the data actually comes out and we look at the numbers, because there's no point conjecturing on that. We don't know. We're not experts. But it feels that what I liked about this season is the number of new commercial partners that they have added. And whether it be Aramark, whether it be Nokia, even through all that the club has gone through, their ability to get actual sponsors has been quite good. And I think this team has done a pretty good job in increasing that number massively, because if you calculate what they've done a fairly good job out of that. So kudos where it's due. And it's not a state-owned club that unknown companies come and become sponsors, which you will see in many state-owned clubs, that they have thousands of sponsors. You don't know the companies. Here, these are real companies and they are sponsoring, and that's a good thing. Hopefully that can continue. And hopefully with the stadium coming up and whatever form of FC Barça comes along, there's a lot of controversy around what will happen, not what have you. But at least the signings that will happen from a retail perspective for the space that is there, I think that will help the team to a large extent. And hopefully the good thing is the wage bill has come down by about 200 million, which is insane for us to pull that down by 200 million. This is a massive number. And by the time we end up paying the unpaid amounts, there's also this one topic about, let's talk about that. There's also this topic about Frankie de Jong. Apparently the club has made some deal with him that if he leaves in 2025, they'll pay him his back dues or what have you. So there are players like that, whether that'll happen or not. But once this is out, and once we have the other deal and the new advertising that can be clocked in the book only from the next year, I think we'll be in a good position from a long-term debt perspective. And I think we will be in the 1:1. Now, what we do after the 1:1 and whom we sign after the 1:1 is the question that everybody's asking, and we'll have to look into it. But Dom, any thoughts on that before we wrap up this episode?
No, I just feel, even though at the moment we're still in a dire situation, it feels like we're going somewhere. We're progressing. We're actually making some leaps in that department as well. So Barca are not a financial giant. We're not really fueled by old money or anything like that. But we are slowly getting to a stage where we are healthy again and where we can actually do stuff that we need for this team in the near future. So I feel like it's good. It's slow, but it's a process that's actually improving us in that regard. So I'm looking forward to that. And on Frankie de Jong, I don't know. It just feels at this point he will have to leave one way or the other. I'm not entirely sure if that's what we need. Okay, wages are a big problem. Obviously, he's still highly paid, and that there's no escaping that fact. But what if he comes in and he becomes a crucial part of the system, of the dynamic of the team? He actually gets to a level where we need him to be. Then what? Right? Do we still sell him? Do we try and retain him? Do we try and restructure the wages again? So there's a lot of questions there, but I'm looking forward to seeing him on the pitch. I really want to see him under Flick before he goes. Even if he goes in the end, I just want to see what this version of Frankie de Jong can do under a competent, very disciplined, very hands-on, very clear coach who will identify his strengths well and play to them. I want to see that version of Frankie de Jong before he leaves them.
Absolutely. And apparently he's going to give an interview on Barca One, which is Barcelona's television channel, I think tomorrow. I think once he goes there, there'll be a lot of news and gossip around that, and we'll pick up the ones that were most interesting and we'll bring you that next episode. That's why we're waiting to hear from him before we conjecture. And we would love to see what he has to say, because he's not been playing for almost 6-7 months now. Nobody really knows what has happened to him. Nobody really knows when he's going to return. So there's a lot of conjecture and gossip around Frankie de Jong. I think this interview will clear a lot of that, and that's why the club is scheduling it. I think that's what will happen. But that's it, guys. That's what basically happened this week. There's a lot more going in, and there'll be a lot more to talk about as we go. There's Alaves, then there's Bayern, then there's Real Madrid. It's going to be absolutely cracking the whole of October. So looking forward to it, and whatever rest that we can get. Hopefully we get some of the injured players back, and hopefully we don't suffer any new injuries.
There's always something happening in Barca, so we'll keep doing what we're doing. We'll keep gossiping every week with you guys. So make sure to check out the channel, the podcast, the videos, the blog. We do cover a lot, and we do it on a weekly basis. You have all sorts of different content for every type of fan out there. For the more relaxed fans, for the who like the podcast, who like the gossip, who like the news. And we do also have tactics heavy and data heavy stuff all across our platform. So please do check it out. Buy us a coffee if you want to. Subscribe to our channel if you want to. It would do us a lot of good. So yeah, here we are. End of the other podcast, Dev. Guys, that's it. Stay safe. And as we always say, Visca el Barça.